Talk a little bit about talent acquisition with Hanneke de Visser. Now, Hanneke, she's a talent acquisition specialist. We're right now working for Galapagos. So I'm going to welcome her to the virtual stage and ask her to turn on her camera and unmute her microphone.
Thank you so much. Really a pleasure to be with you this afternoon. And it's an interesting topic, of course. It has been my life for many years already because I work in talent acquisition since a long time. And I calculated for you, I must have had about 2,500 job interviews with engineers or other technical profiles in the past 5 years. And what I want to do is share with you some learnings. I can only talk, of course, about how I go about it, and that's what I'd like to do. I think part of it is a mindset. Part of it is also about optimization. I cannot give you the magic wand because there is none, I'm afraid. But let's move forward, and I'm trying to go to the next slide. Just a second. Yeah. Voila. Short overview of what I've done. So today I'm working mostly at Galapagos, a biopharmaceutical company with about 1,400 employees. They recently acquired 2 startups, and I'm dedicated to those startups and help them with their recruitments. Occitane Europe is a very small company in Europe, a sister or daughter organization of a Brazilian multinational in chemicals. IMEC is the Inter-University Microelectronics Center, very specialized. They have a number of clean rooms working in the chip industry. I was mostly dedicated to the high-performance compute system team. Well, I'm not going to go in detail for all of them, but what is important, some of those companies have a very difficult time to recruit talent. Others do. For others, it's less complicated, and sometimes it's not what you think. For instance, at IMEC, the profiles were sometimes so specialized, and the more specialized and the more highly educated people must be, the easier it is to find those resources, because those are the people that invest a lot in their education, and they know the market very well. They know the players that may have opportunities, and they will not find an opportunity on a daily basis. So in general, I would say the more specialized, the easier it gets. On the contrary, looking for account managers or software developers with Java is a whole different story. So in addition to my HR work, I'm also co-founder and board member of Ciao. Ciao is the company behind the Connects platform. And I'm a project manager and board member at Transparency International Belgium, because I'm very passionate about integrity and fighting corruption. An important observation for me, I have been disturbed with the terminology, the war for talent, for a long time. I don't think we should be talking about a war. Talent acquisition is about passion and opportunity. And yeah, I don't think that we should be very careful with the language that we use. Passion and opportunity. Am I being romantic? No, I don't think so. We already listened to Roy, and this is also a study from SD Works about how satisfied people are with their jobs in Belgium and the surrounding countries, I think it will be more or less the same everywhere in the world. Even if people are employed, it doesn't mean that they're all happy. And the most important obstacles that does not give them the jobs satisfaction that they are looking for is not having the sense of being meaningful, or not being in a company where you can identify with the social values, not in an inclusive environment. People also want to be proud of the work that they produce, and that's the category, of course, of the so-called bullshit jobs. And then we all know that there's a big problem with mental and physical strain at work, and the commute is also something that can really make people unhappy. And the need for hybrid working is something that I hear a lot. So what is my mission? My mission is in this difficult landscape to attract and to reassure. Because if you are not satisfied with your job, who is going to tell you that the position that you are applying for is going to make you more satisfied? And this is very important to bear in mind. The candidate has a lot of questions, and we need to answer those questions. And it all starts with your strategy and your purpose. Where are you going and how will you get there? And then you build your story around that, and you talk about it. What I understood from Christian is that it would be very likely that many of you would be coming from the more startup oriented environment. And this is a big question for the smaller companies. So if you are a startup or an SME, it can be super interesting to attract individuals that have been in the larger corporate organizations for some time, because in the end, that is where people are often really well trained on project management skills, on leadership skills, all sorts of trainings and habits that are interesting to attract in your own organization. I actually talk quite a bit with people coming from larger organizations that are specifically interested in joining a smaller structure. And the reasons that they give me is in a larger organization, they feel they have less impact. And people get a lot of job satisfaction with doing something that is significant, and also being close to the decision makers is an argument that they often bring forward. In large structures, you have to go through a lot of layers before your ID gets listened to and gets validated. And they hope in a smaller structure that they can just walk into the office of the CEO and say, hey, can you listen to this? Because I have something on my mind. Then, in addition, of course, in a smaller organization, the jobs are more vertical. So you can offer more responsibilities, more variety in a position compared to the larger structures. And then political matters can play a role. And where from the outside, people often think that large organizations give more job security. After a few reorganizations, sometimes people feel that it is not as stable as they would like. So in other words, small can be a competitive advantage, but you have to make sure you're beautiful, because those engineers will be looking for the same professional features that they find in the bigger structure that they are working for. And if you can give that professionalism and share it with them so that they understand the way you operate, then you are in a good space. Now, those technical candidates, I'm just skipping the parts of how you get to them. I'm just here assuming that you are already in contact. Then the very first thing that I notice is it's so important to take time for people. So be very generous with your time and be generous with your interest, because people like to be in such circumstances. It is about them, so they are the main character in this journey. And what is important, and it was already addressed in the previous presentation as well, but talk about the potential and the purpose and the complexity of the project. Engineers are problem solvers, and they want to be reassured by knowing what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what is the innovation, the complexity, what is the interesting part, and the ability, your ability to adapt and to innovate is also identified by engineers as your ability to survive and to become bigger, and to offer them the growth that comes with your growth. Another important topic is the leadership of the organization. Talk about your leadership. Explain them how you share information, how you make sure that your people learn, and how you create clarity on goals and priorities. And you can go very much into detail. Just talk about the weekly meetings and how you use tools to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and what kind of methodology you use, because those are all things that matter to people. And then, of course, the individual professional development, how it is measured and compensated, is an important factor that you need to have a crisp and clear answer to. And then, the most important part, I think, is number 5. What is the individual potential to contribute and to come up with concrete impact and innovation? And that, of course, is all about your ability to bring out the best in people. And talk about that, how you do that, because there are methodologies to ensure that people are listened to, and not only the ones that are very vocal, but also people that need a bit more encouragement and so forth. This all is very important to share with your candidates. Now, sometimes what I see is that those profiles are so wanted, and then the hiring manager or the business has one meeting of an hour, and then they come back to me and say, Hanneke, we need to send an offer immediately, because otherwise we might lose this candidate. He or she is great. There, I always am a bit hitting the brake, because being too light in your assessment is not good enough for people that them by themselves set the standards high. So the ambitious candidates that are really crafting their professional career, they will never take a decision based on one piece of data or one fact or figure. And this is what you want to give back as well. You want to be in that way of thinking where you make sure that you entirely understand with whom you have those with whom you have the meeting. So one interview is not enough. I would definitely encourage to include a few colleagues. It can be very interesting to ask the person to hold a presentation, because those who are ambitious and are really looking for growth, they will gladly do that. And I'm here sharing a picture of a personality questionnaire. It's a methodology that I'm using myself. It's an extra instrument to understand not only how good people are at certain tasks or competencies, but also what drives them. And this is a methodology that is going to give you information about 32 different components that are important at work on the behavioral side. And so is this candidate more or less interested than the benchmarking group in, for instance, leadership or in influencing or in analytical tasks or, well, it's an entire list, but this is a very cost-effective way and pretty light to ask someone to fill out this questionnaire, and it will give you extra information, because it doesn't mean if somebody is very smart and bright, it doesn't mean that he or she is also very motivated in doing certain things. So it must be a very good match with the profile that you have on mind. Then the final bit that I wanted to share with you, it's the price tag. And this is indeed a very complicated one, and Roy already talked about it. How can we deal with this issue? The CEO of the startup that recently joined Galapagos within our first meeting is said to me, Hanneke, people have joined us at a lower salary than they had because we are so cool and our project is so cool. And that also is connected to what was said before. Not all candidates are entirely money driven. What I do think is important to add is, if people know that there's budget, they will want to have a salary that they think you can afford as well. So of course, it's all a matter of balancing out. The more junior profiles are a bit easier to attract because it's easier to manage their financial expectations. But if you are a smaller company and you're growing, at one point you will need more senior experts, because otherwise you will lose the younger people. They need the role models and the guidance and the potential that comes with having more experienced people in your team. This is just from the human resource perspective, because of course for your organization as such, you also need enough gravitas to make sure you make things happen. But if you then if you are looking at more senior profiles and it's very difficult to fit them into your budget, think about different opportunities or options that you may have, such as a part-time consultant or somebody just on a project basis to work with you temporarily, who can leave an imprint, or hiring someone from a lower cost company, because there are brilliant people that live in lower cost parts of the world, highly educated, that can bring a lot of value. The only thing is that they're not close to us, but working remotely is definitely something that we have learned over the past years. So there can be smart solutions, and yeah, if it works, it's just the most satisfying thing, and it's all about completing your puzzle. And I hope I have at least inspired you a little bit on how we should definitely think about the glass being half full. And if we do things a bit more thorough and with more consideration, and if we really look for what matters to people, I think you can outperform a lot of competition. Thank you so much for listening.